Hey everyone, welcome to kind of an impromptu unsafe space thing. As you guys may know, I'm not a big fan of talking by myself in front of the camera live, but kind of want to talk about Epstein's. We'll wait a few minutes to see if anyone else joins. I may be joined by Katrina, my friend Katrina, who live streamed with me the other day. So she may join, but I'll wait just a couple minutes. The main reason I wanted to have this live stream is I've been thinking about this Epstein thing, and I kind of wanted to talk about it with you guys. So okay. Well, Herman is in chat, so that's good. So there's at least one person up and paying attention to this and in the discussion. So yeah, I here's why I want to talk about Epstein. I'll just start and people can come in if they're going to come in. And if Katrina comes, I'll try and remember. I'll try and I have to notice her on this screen and enable her video. But she comes. She comes. I talked to a few people this morning about it, a few of my buddies, and I figured I kind of wanted to talk about the Epstein thing to the community because, well, it's kind of weird. It's definitely unusual. And hey, Bry, thanks for joining. Um, yeah, it's obviously unusual, and we could say potentially a lot about the Epstein thing. So, just from a high level, let's just step back and look at what was going on. Right, we had Epstein in the news. Now, we can even rewind before that. Epstein largely ignored by the media for basically years and years. Cernovich, and I think it was the Miami Herald or some local newspaper, pushing to bring this back into the spotlight, filing court documents, trying to get information. Epstein arrested again and in the news a little bit, but mostly because they could connect it to Trump somehow, right? Because Acosta is a Trump appointee and had been involved in giving Epstein a slap on the wrist years before. So the news media kind of talked about it a little bit. They could also talk about Mar-a-Lago, so they could connect it to Trump. But Trump by no means is one of the central celebrity figures involved in this. I mean, he's tangentially involved a little bit, and there's some evidence that he maybe went to a party at Epstein's house in New York or something, and some people were at Mar-a-Lago, which is not unusual because lots of important people were at Mar-a-Lago. So, but there's a lot of deep state people who could be massively implicated. Bill Clinton is the obvious one, right? He was on the Leda Express, I don't know, a couple dozen times or whatever it was. Uh, you know, royalty, celebrities, lots of kind of deep state people that could be implicated. So anyway, so the media kind of doesn't pay attention. Then they pay attention a little bit when they can kind of link it to Trump. Then Cernovich wins his court case. So now we're going to have Epstein documents released. So we're going to find out the truth. And, you know, I'm just saying what happened. I'm not saying there's a conspiracy here, but and then suddenly, like, voila, some mass shootings in the news. So we get distracted and we're talking about mass shootings instead of Epstein, and we're just kind of ignoring the Epstein thing. And then on Friday, some of the court documents come out where we can start to get details about Epstein. And voila, Saturday morning, Epstein's dead. So it happens on uh, Saturday morning. So there's the entire weekend news cycle is kind of different than the weekly news cycle, right? So they can kind of be ignored. And by Monday, it'll be old news again. And they can kind of sweep this under the rug. And there's the conflicting reports. Laura Loomer was reporting that he was on suicide watch. The New York Times is saying he was taken off of suicide watch. He had tried to commit suicide a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago. And normally what happens, so I'm not an investigative reporter. I don't have a network of people, but I did call the jail this morning and try and get some information on like how they treat suicide watch and what the rules are. I got the runaround, didn't really get much information, but that's not the point. I did find out from other sources what the procedure is, and these are publicly available. This isn't me doing any cool investigating. And other sources mean I was on the internet Googling or DuckDuckGoing. So anyway, look, there's a suicide watch means you have a room basically with windows all around it. You've got someone in the adjacent room that's supposed to be kind of keeping an eye on you. You've got shoelaces and belts and bedding removed, and you've got video cameras. So suicide watch it's basically impossible to commit suicide if you're on suicide watch. And I don't think there's evidence that has happened almost ever. I don't know if I've not seen any case of this ever. I did see someone say they worked in the system for decades and never knew anyone to have committed suicide on suicide watch. But the New York Times is saying he was taken off of suicide watch a couple days ago. So that could be it. It could be that he was taken off. Even if he was taken off of suicide watch, though, why? Why would you take this man off of suicide watch if he had tried to kill himself before? So normally to do that, you need like a psychiatrist to evaluate the person. There needs to be a change in the material facts of the case. Like something changes. He gets, this case moves forward in some way that's positive, or something shifts that could explain why he's no longer at risk of suicide. But of course, none of that happened. If he actually was removed from suicide watch, it's pretty fishy about like, why would that be? So I'm not saying, and as I'm sure a lot of people will accuse anyone who's not part of the NPC mainstream narrative, I'm not saying that Hillary Clinton sneaked into the detention center and murdered this guy. And I'm not even saying that the Clintons were necessarily involved or whatever, but I am saying the deep state had a reason to keep him quiet. We knew that there was going to be a lot more information that he could come out. His only leverage, his only playing card, the guy was old. The only thing that was going to keep him from dying in jail was spilling the beans on people that were more powerful than him. And there was a lot of very powerful people involved. And conveniently now he's dead. And so does it have to be a conspiracy theory? No, it could just be total incompetence. Herman, you said earlier, it could totally be incompetence. But I mean, that's the beauty of how the deep state works. It could always totally be incompetence. I mean, that's one of the best cover-ups, right? It could totally be incompetence. But it could also be incentivized incompetence. It could also be like, well, don't worry about keeping him on suicide watch. And hey, why don't you that's just a pain. Why don't you do that? Like there could be bribed incompetence. So my guess is that he was actually taken off of suicide watch. And the reason I'm guessing that is the truth and not that he was on it is because if he was on suicide watch, that is even more suspicious, because then people are going to ask for footage of the cameras and they're going to have to say, whoops, the cameras were broken, or, Joe and Jim, the cameraman, the maintenance people forgot to plug them in or whatever. They're going to have to make up some story. So I think it's easier for them to just be like, oops, we took him off suicide watch. Sorry. The guy was distraught. So if he kills himself, that's better for them anyway. The deep state doesn't want him to not have killed himself. They want him to, if he's going to kill himself, they want to encourage it. So it's super, super. Yeah. Someone just said it's suspicious as F. By the way, I'm trying not to swear. You can swear all you want. I'm trying not to swear because we're testing whether swearing affects the monetization on YouTube. But yes, it is suspicious as F. And at the very least, we have to look at this and say, this is a huge loss of credibility. And not that, look, there was no credibility left for the deep state as far as I'm concerned. And I know many of you, but even I was shocked because I figured, look, yeah, it would be bad if he was suicided in jail, but man, it would look really, really bad. But so I thought maybe they won't do that. No one would allow that to happen. They're going to keep him alive because look, think about how bad it would look if he committed suicide in jail. They're going to make sure he's alive just so that they don't look, I mean, it's just too obvious. who would do this? But so I was a little bit shocked because I was like, wow, someone did mental calculus and they decided that as bad as this looks, whatever he had to say was worse. So that's some pretty serious mental calculus that happened. And yeah, like list of likely suspects include Prince Andrew. Yeah, so Prince Andrew was one of the people implicated. Bill Clinton's people clearly implicated. Joy Reid on what is she? Does anyone know? Is she MSNBC? I think she's MSNBC. Joy Reid tried to imply it was Bill Barr, because of course now Bill Barr's in charge of everything apparently now. But yeah, it's a Justice Department prison, so that what she was like, oh, it was to protect Trump. Trump probably had the least to lose of anyone. People already hate Trump and think he's a horrible person. I mean, that's the narrative already. So I'm not sure what Trump had to lose as compared to some of these other deep state people. But so I think a lot of boomer mentality people are still holding out hope that there's some legitimacy to our institutions, and there's not legitimacy to our institutions. And maybe this will be a little bit of a wake up call to some of the boomers who kind of think that there's some kind of legitimate system that whereby justice will be done eventually. I don't know, but certainly for the rest of us, this the only shocking thing about this is that they were this bold, and that this was but what's going to go away. Now he's not going to be in the news, and it's going to be left to people like Cernovich to sift through the court documents that were released and try and make a stink about it and get this stuff in the news again. But yeah, murder, suicide, it doesn't matter. What matters is what happens to the pedo network. That's right. But his the pedo network is now likely to not be exposed to the extent that it was going to. I don't know. Jane asks if this was the first suicide attempt, or if the first one was genuine. I don't know. And I did this. So the weird thing is, the EMTs got there and the body was already cold. So he had been dead for a long time. Apparently the EMTs said there was no markings on the body, but there's been reporters who've said, claiming that there were marks on his neck. Laura Loomer has the EMT audio up on her website, and I listened to most of it, and they didn't say there was any markings, but that just because they didn't say it doesn't mean there weren't markings. I find it also suspicious that they immediately know the cause of death without an autopsy or anything else. That's kind of odd. They knew the cause of death literally right away, so that's kind of a weird thing. Yeah, the first suicide is paving. Maybe the first suicide was just a dry run. The first attempt. Let's see if we can do it. So, yeah, I don't know. Read the memorandum on bail filed with SDNY asking to deny his bail. It looks like the Fed sees lots of video photo evidence that would have been used to blackmail others. Yes, I don't think I read that memo, but I did read an article about this. They did seize a hell of a lot of video and photo evidence. I think he was using, the general, I don't even want to say conspiracy theory because it's probably true, but conspiracy theories can be true. The general theory here is that he was enticing people. He was taking powerful people. He was enticing them to sleep with underage women, possibly without their knowledge, or kind of implying that maybe that was okay, that they were 18. Obviously it's all sick anyway, but he was getting them to do this, getting them on video or getting some sort of evidence about them, and then leveraging that to build his empire. And I have heard other hedge fund managers talk about him and say no one in Wall Street really knew how he got his money, how he managed to be this quote big, allegedly, of a hedge fund manager without any funds or LPs or other people in New York really knowing who this guy was. No one says yeah, I'm part of his fund, except for the people who were implicated, right? Which is also a great way to take bribes without it looking like a bribe, right? So you say, hey, I've got evidence on you. I got you here. You need to pay me, but the way that I want you to pay me is invest in my fund, and and this is how it works. So it's I mean, obviously Epstein is a shady, horrible, disgusting creature. We know that. And we're also, I would say, 99.9% sure that a large percentage of people on the suspect list are also shady, horrible creatures that he had evidence on. And um, so, I don't know. I could see him wanting to kill himself. Like, I could see, I don't know, you guys, I think it's legit that he might have been suicidal. Like, that's not surprising. But even if he was suicidal, if you're in charge of this case, you got to know the guy's, so especially if he had already tried to kill himself, your job's to protect him and get information. So even if he was already suicidal, there's still something rotten in Denmark here, because he should have been in a situation where he couldn't have gotten away with this. Yeah, it is, right? It's expected, but it's heartbreaking nonetheless. Yeah, I agree. It was one of those, I'm shocked but not surprised. I don't know if that's a distinction that matters, but I'm kind of not surprised, but yeah. Epstein was sharing a cell. This is from Jane. Epstein was sharing a cell with a former cop charged with kidnapping and murder 2 weeks ago when he first allegedly attempted suicide. Oh, so even the first suicide could have been a fake. Wouldn't he say something though if there was an attempt on his life? I don't know. Maybe he did and no one said anything. I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts. That's why I'm doing this. So this isn't a live stream so that I can just blurt out stuff to you. I don't know. I don't know the answer. The whole thing just bothers me, and the pedophile ring really, really bothers me. And there was this. There was this ray of hope that maybe they'll be taken down somehow, and this is pretty disappointing. Giselle's in prison too, right? What's her name? Giselle. Last name's begins with an M. I don't remember her name. I'll look her up. Maxwell. Is that her name? Oh, Ghislaine, not Giselle. Ghislaine Maxwell she was his recruiter. Is she in jail? I think she's in jail. I would think that. Do you think his lawyers are loyal to him or the cathedral? That's another good point, right? His lawyers are loyal to the cathedral, obviously. Especially if he's the kind of guy that we know he is, he might have had dirt on his lawyers. So like they might have been part of his cabal. So they might have an incentive to be like, oh, if we can get rid of all this crap, let's just get rid of it. But you've heard nothing about her being in jail. She's British. Oh, okay. If she is in jail, I'll look up if she's in jail. If she's in jail, I would hope that she's under tight protection. But I hadn't heard she's in jail either. I'm just assuming that they go after more than one person at a time. No, she's not in jail. Or at least if she is, it's not being reported at all. So, I mean, chalk one up to the Clinton body count, whether it's Clinton or not. They said there were finger bruises around his neck that he choked himself. I mean, how do you choke? I guess you got to have a lot of determination. I'd fear for my life if I were her. Yeah. I mean, she's going to commit suicide real soon, I'm sure. That's the next thing we can expect. Is she'll be found dead, having choked herself, or something equally bizarre. Yeah, it's unclear what's going on because I'm not even sure whether he was on suicide notch or not. It's pronounced Jillian. Okay, thank you. It's an Irish name. Check father. Nail gun to the back of the head. That's why. Yeah, she's gonna Vince Foster it. Although I don't think that was a nail gun, but yeah, she's gonna have a Vince Foster problem. Yeah, she is. Yeah, she's fighting to have the papers sealed. She's still in the farmhouse. Okay. And Dershowitz was fighting to have the papers sealed, wasn't he? Oh no, he was fighting to have them exonerated, or sorry, revealed, because he thought it would exonerate him. And then he said some weird things publicly. I don't know. I mean, look, I think there's probably, I'm not saying this is partisan. There's probably Republicans implicated in this as well. I'm not a Republican, so I'm not. This isn't a party thing, but it's definitely a deep state thing. And I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think normies are going to start questioning their assumptions about the legitimacy of the institutions? Yeah, Laura, I don't know if he was on Suicide Watch. He was reported as on Suicide Watch, but then the New York Times said he was taken off Suicide Watch a couple days ago. So I'm not. The facts aren't totally clear. My guess is he wasn't on Suicide Watch because it's a lot harder to explain if he was on Suicide Watch than it's easier to explain like, oops, he was off Suicide Watch. That's an easy explanation. Yeah, some of the records were unsealed and released Friday, right? But those are court documents. Those aren't, that's not a detailed explanation of what was going on. There was all this material seized from his house recently. That doesn't include any of that. For all we know, some of that material was encrypted, and his brain is necessary to access it. So, if I were doing something nefarious, now maybe it's because I have a crypto background, but if I were doing something horrible, I would encrypt stuff, and only I would have the password in my head, and my death would mean that would never see the light of day. Although I guess if I was using it to blackmail, I would want there to be some insurance that if I was killed, the material would get out. So maybe not. I'm not sure. Pedophilia transcends partisan politics. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know the truth about this either. That's what's sad, Jane. And it's, I know you're across the pond. These are people on, both sides of the Atlantic implicated in this, powerful people, princes, I think other royalty, and certainly a lot of celebrities and politicians in America. I don't know. I don't have anything else really big to say. I just wanted to talk to you guys about it. And I don't know, you guys have any other thoughts about this? Because it's depressing. It's super depressing. I'm still excited that the documents are going to be released, and I know Cernovich is going to keep going after this stuff, and probably won't let it go. But we're not going to hear Epstein's tell-all stuff. Although his recruiter, she could still do something. She probably has a lot of information. He also had citizenship in Israel. They could easily hide him there. Who? Epstein had citizenship in Israel? Yeah, they do happen a lot in China. It's a very oops, he's dead. Sorry. Yeah, I did have a friend tell me that. Let me read what she said before I. Yeah, if the camera went broken, that's why I don't think he was on Suicide Watch, because they'd have to claim the camera went broken. So my friend is telling me that the popular theory among people that she follows is that Epstein was a Mossad asset, which is totally weird. I don't even know what that means, and she didn't write anything else to me in this chat, so I haven't talked to her about it since then. I don't know what that means. Mossad would have been more subtle, I would think, right? And they wouldn't have screwed it up the first time. Oh, her father is widely believed to be Mossad also. It's so weird. Yeah, it's the thing is, it's just so unbelievable, even for people who aren't red-pilled. The whole thing is just so it's so unbelievable. I don't know. I don't know what happens next, guys. I guess what happens next is hopefully Cernovich starts revealing more in the court docs, but it looks like we're not going to find out what was going on with these pedophiles. Yeah, nothing to see here. I don't think the news will talk about it much. I think they have two choices. They can try and talk about it, or they can try and blame Trump and his people on this. And Joy Reid is actually super low IQ. So I don't think that her whole attempt to blame Trump is going to, I think it's too stupid for people to latch onto, although it is, it is the mainstream media, so maybe they'll latch on and try and push it. I think they'll just kind of bury it. They'll be like, yeah, he died. They'll run a few stories. Ooh, this is suspicious. And then they'll go away and we'll never hear about it. Yeah, half of Washington is celebrating now. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty sick. It's pretty sick. I think, if we want to get into weird conspiracy stuff, wait, I didn't get my Maxwell knowledge from Alex Jones. It was mainstream news in the UK. Yeah, no, a lot of stuff actually that people blame on weird conspiracy stuff is actually just mainstream common knowledge, and people, write books about it or put it together or connect the dots in obvious ways, and suddenly it becomes a conspiracy theory. But yeah, Mossad is like our CIA. Mossad's worse than our CIA. Well, I don't know that for a fact. Mossad, they'll do a lot of stuff. Yeah, but yeah, my theory, talking about conspiracy theory, what I think happens is, I actually, you got to figure that when the state has a lot of power, powerful people want to, like rich, wealthy people have a lot to protect. They've got a lot of interests to protect, and they've got a lot of opportunity that they can leverage. And so there's an incentive for them to own politicians. And so, it may be that it's not far-fetched to think that money flows into campaigns of politicians who can be owned and doesn't flow to campaigns of politicians who can't be owned. And so it's not that being interested in politics makes you a pedophile, but it might be like, well, getting money makes it, you're more likely to get money if you're likely to get caught in blackmail, because that's what they want. That's the whole system. If I can own you, then great. Then I want you in power so that I can control you. So, yeah, the wealth and power of those involved makes this high profile. Yeah. Doesn't this happen all the time in some of the poorest parts of the world? Yes, it does. It does. I think it does. But I think, we still have this weird narrative that like the leaders are somehow upstanding citizens in some weird way, and really they're scumbags, and you wouldn't have them at your neighborhood barbecue. So the material for blackmailing is worth 1,000 times more than Epstein's life. Yeah, absolutely, that's right. He didn't really have anything to live for. He had enough money to have made it. Yeah, he didn't have much to live for. I don't know why he came back in the US at all. I mean, that seemed like a pretty idiot move, and it is way bigger than the Clintons. I agree. Yeah. I just think that they're one of the prominent names involved. But yeah, I mean, the Clintons alone could not have made the guy a billionaire, right? It involves a lot more people. I don't know, Andrew Thompson, you just joined. What do you think? We kind of went through, I guess, to recap for people who just joined. We don't know if he was on suicide watch. We know that he was reported to have been on suicide watch. If he was on suicide watch, it's almost certain that he didn't kill himself. It's basically impossible. There's also the New York Times is reporting that he was off suicide watch. So it's easier to explain the death if they're like, oops, we took him off suicide watch by mistake. We'll slap the wrist of the person who did that, sorry, and go away and make it go away. You're going to take over Epstein's ranch? That's a great idea. It's probably a dope ranch. I don't even know where it is, but yeah, so I don't have anything else to say, guys. I feel like I should wind this up. I just wanted to have a conversation with you about it and see what people thought. Is there anything else, like any other thoughts or comments that people have on this that I'm missing? Stanley, New Mexico. Okay. Yeah, right. Well, actually, so tomorrow guys will get fired. Actually, what will happen is over the next year, there'll be a few prison guard deaths. Right. There'll be a few prison staff will die mysteriously and like, oh, no, that was a car accident. Yeah. That's also true. They can hide the truth in plain sight and just put in a lot of other disinformation out of there. Uh, but Maxwell, uh, she still could theoretically flip, but she's not even in custody. So, um, as a Chinese, wait, so you're saying you're Chinese, Aries Lay? These tactics are too obvious. Yeah. Uh, I mean, it is pretty common in in China. My wife's Chinese, and we talk about this sometimes. Yeah, it's pretty normal behavior for China. Like, oh, prominent guy who's got shit on the party dies. Oops, or just disappears. So I don't think China's all that much different from the West right now. I mean, I've said this before, but China has just figured out how to run an efficient tax farm. But the ideology of communism as such in China has really died. They're really just it's more about authoritarianism than communism per se. They want to run a good tax farm. They want to be in charge. They want to be authoritarians. They've got leaders who have vested interest in running things and grifters, and that's the way they are. And I think the US, it's the same way. We just started from individual rights and started to erode them and chip away at them, but we're kind of approaching the same, we're kind of approaching the same end goal as China, which is, an authoritarian country that's kind of like there's some semblance of a free market, but if you get big enough, they kind of own you, control you, and can tell you what to do, and there's not free speech and government's in control. I mean, there's not really much of a difference between where China's headed and we're headed. But so yeah, it's just the ruling class over more power, which by the way is why I understand. I'm sympathetic to some of the younger kind of angsty generation of, I won't say I'm sympathetic to Marxists, but I'm sympathetic to the angst that they have about the system and like, yeah, it is rigged and it is this system where it's kind of like an oligarchy sort of, and they're just those people. However, if they don't think about the principles behind it, they're easily duped by Marxists who just want to rule them with a tighter fist, and so they get used as fodder for the Marxist cannon. The West is following the lead of China. We're maybe 10 years behind them. Yeah, I agree with you, Denzel. So new game to play. Instead of 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon, it's 6 degrees to Hillary Clinton. Yes, that is a good game. I think, man, 6 degrees. Although 6 degrees away from anyone, that's many. I don't think you have to go that many degrees away from Hillary. I think you could have a pretty good body count with just like 2 degrees away from Hillary Clinton. But yeah, he has a brother out there that was involved. I didn't realize he had a brother that was involved. Maxwell will be the next to die, and the brother, if the brother was involved, anyone involved is next to die. Yeah, I mean, like someone said earlier in the chat, she better be looking over her shoulder, checking her 6. And even so, I'm pretty sure I can flowchart from Jesse Smollett to HRC in around 3. Probably Jesse Smollett to HRC in 3. Yeah, I think you could probably do that. All right, guys. I'll see you later. Gary and I will see you on Monday. I'll go edit some other stuff that we have and try and get it up because I'm behind on that. Have a good weekend. Thank you for thinking through this with me. Like I said, I just kind of wanted to think it through with you guys because a lot of you names you're in chat all the time. I recognize you, and you're part of a like-minded community. So I wanted to hear what you had to say, and I appreciate it. So with that, have a good rest of your afternoon, weekend, whatever time zone you're in. Take care.